Welcome to HQ Spotlight, folks. It is week 8 of the college football season. I'm Tommy Tran with one half of the Cover 3 podcast. Always joining me every week, Danny Kanell on set, Chip Patterson from home. A couple of housekeeping notes here. Chip did go 7 for 11 last week. DK 12 and 7. So 59 and 61 is what Chip is. DK 61 and 62 because DK likes to sprinkle some extra 2-for-1s in there. Yeah. So it's getting close. It's getting to the nitty-gritty, and this is a perfect week to make up some ground because there are 5 ranked-on-ranked matchups here. That's the most that we've had since last season, actually, week 9, where there were 5. And let me just remind you, if you're making your choices here, because we're going against the spread, lower-ranked teams are 13 and 7 straight up against higher-ranked teams this season. So we are now going to get the meat and potatoes right off the bat. The 5 ranked-on-ranked matchups here, we're going to talk about them at length. Number 11, Tennessee, catching 8.5 against Alabama at Bryant-Denny. 58.5 is the total. Danny, you had the better week, so I'll let you start first. Where do you want to start when it comes to Vols and Crimson Tide?
Well, geez, now you gave me that stat. I might be switching some of my plays today because this is one of those lower-ranked teams facing a higher-ranked team. And I'm going to go ahead and back the Tide again. I mean, since the Florida State game, this team has just been playing as good as anybody in the country. And it starts with Ty Simpson at the quarterback position, who has just stood in the pocket on the road at Missouri last week, was getting harassed, did not faze him one bit. The defense has been playing better, and I think that's the biggest difference today. If this game was in Knoxville, I'd think about backing the Vols, but Joey Aguilar has been his play has dipped somewhat recently. I think crowd noise comes into play, and I think his ability to get those big pass plays down the field is impacted. I think Alabama, again, asserts themselves as the team at the top of the conference, so I'll go ahead and lay the points with the Tide.
Chip?
Yeah, quick note following Danny there. Joey Aguilar against FBS teams with a winning record. 5 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Dipped as of late. I agree with you. It means the schedule's gotten tougher. His performance has gotten a little more erratic. But I'm going to put that to the side, unless, of course, we're talking about a pick 6 for Alabama's defense, because my best bet for this game is going to be the Alabama team total over 34.5. And I hear you. You're sitting there, you're saying, Chip, they hadn't had more than 30 points against an SEC opponent yet. Yeah, I understand. They're going to say, Chip, the only team that, they've been able to get more than 31 or more against a power conference opponent was Wisconsin. Yeah, I hear you. But have you seen Tennessee's defense? Have you seen Tennessee's defense against SEC competition? Because they've let teams that don't have Ty Simpson and that don't have Jeremy Bernard and don't have the rest of these Alabama skill players, they've let them all score up into the 30s, even low 40s. So I think Alabama can get there as well. Clearly, we are monitoring the status of Jam Miller here, but even still, asking Alabama to get 35 points against a Tennessee team that is going to be motivated to get up and down the field and then also defensively has been giving it up, I feel pretty confident in that.
I'm glad you brought up Jam Miller. A couple of injury updates as he left the Mizzou game in the fourth quarter with a concussion. Kalen DeBoer giving an update saying Jam will be going through protocol this week. Deshaun Bishop left the Arkansas game for the Vols in the third quarter with a lower body. Josh Heupel saying during his weekly Monday press conference that he expects Bishop to be ready to go. Before we move on, though, let me ask you guys about Ryan Williams, the game that he had against Mizzou there. No catches in the victory. I was with Damian Harris Saturday and talking about it. We all know what Dame has to say in regards to that. So the good news is Alabama, Ty Simpson, throwing it around, doing well. But is this something that's going to hang over this team's head leading into this week's ranked matchup, Danny?
No, because they do have a lot of other weapons to work with. And I think that's the thing. Ryan Williams came in with so much hype and so much expectations, right? It was Jeremiah Smith and it was Ryan Williams. And I do think Jeremiah Smith, body type, does make him the far superior wide receiver. Ryan Williams is still younger. He's not as big. He's a little bit more twitchy. And he's had the drop. So I think it's hard. You'd be lying if you said that it wasn't a disappointing start to the season for Ryan Williams. I think he's had a roller coaster ride. He's had good games where he had against Wisconsin, but he also dropped a touchdown pass in that game. Statistically, the bottom line was fine. I think Ty Simpson's one of his biggest jobs to do as a quarterback is to make sure that Ryan Williams doesn't get upset, that he doesn't start hanging his head, reminding him, hey, we're starting to win games. You still need to do your part. You're still attracting coverages your way, and ultimately it'll come. But I think it's fair to say that Ryan Williams has been a disappointment so far.
Chip?
Disappointment, yes, but not a distraction.
No.
He's a young pup. We got some old dogs in that locker room right now. Ty Simpson right at the front of the list. I love hearing from Caden Proctor who has told us in the preseason and at multiple times during the season that Ty Simpson is lighting into him behind the scenes. Ty Simpson is firing him up. He's telling him when practice wasn't good enough, when it doesn't meet the Alabama standard. I think about Tim Keenan, who's just behind Kalen DeBoer, just talking in his coach's ear about what they were going to do in those early season games when they were looking to bounce back after the loss to Florida State. I just think Ryan Williams is an underclassman in a locker room that is led by veterans. And so his issues on how, dialed in is he, where is he with his drops? He's a phenomenal athletic talent. But I just don't think his performance, good or bad, really sways the heartbeat of this team, because the heartbeat of this team lies with the old players.
Taking a look at the schedule for the Crimson Tide after the Tennessee game. They'll be at South Carolina, which we'll talk about the Gamecocks later in the show. Let's get to another ranked-on-ranked matchup. It's going to be Ole Miss catching a touchdown and a hook between the hedges against Georgia with a total at 53 and a hook. Ole Miss was favored by 33 points against Wazoo, and boy, they certainly made it close. Perhaps look ahead to Georgia. Let me first sort of frame this from a Rebels perspective first, Chip. Have we not only learned anything about this Rebels team, but do you trust them a little bit more to get through the finish line? And now they've got a big matchup against Georgia.
I trust them not to lose to Kentucky like they did a year ago. I think that they are not as – I think they've got enough B option, C option. Last year, one of the big problems for Jackson Dart in this offense is they were very, very focused on their number one receiver, and the rest of the offense wasn't there. I think they've got a better run game. They've got a little bit more balance, a little bit more passing options. I don't think that we'll have those Kentucky-Florida losses, but – I don't know if they are trustworthy to be able to go into Athens against this Georgia defense and to be able to get out. It's a tremendous challenge for Trinidad Chambliss. It's a tremendous challenge for this defense, which has not necessarily been at the same level of where we saw the Rebels a year ago. They're going to probably see a Georgia team that's trying to run the football at a high level. So I do not know if they're trustworthy in this game, Tommy. But I do think that even as things were looking hairy early against Washington State, I wasn't too concerned. I figured they would right the ship because, like you hinted at right there, 100% a look-ahead spot for the Rebels. They are lucky that they didn't let it cost them a game, a win, a loss. But I do think that I can at least trust them to not have some of those same pitfalls offensively that they had a year ago.
I don't trust them. I don't trust them yet. I've actually been pretty high on Ole Miss. Most of the season, they have been winning. That's all that matters. Granted, it might have been ugly. And even against Wazoo, it was ugly, but they escaped that letdown game that they had last year that Chip was referencing against the Kentucky. But I don't trust their defense. That's probably the thing that I trust their offense far more than I do their defense. That's why I'm a little bit concerned with them go on the road here against Georgia, who I think is going to try to get that downhill running attack going at them.
All right, so in terms of selections, Chip, you hinted a little bit about how you view this game. So you do like the Rebels in the first half, not full game. So take me through the 3 and a hook here through 2 quarters.
Sure, I'd love to, Tommy. I like the 7.5. It's just not my best bet because as I was diving into this and picking it apart, something really stood out to me. Georgia has trailed at halftime in 3 of its 4 SEC games. The only time when Georgia led at halftime was against Kentucky in that bounce-back spot 1 week after the Alabama loss. So this has been a slow-starting Georgia offense against SEC competition. It has been a slow-starting Georgia team that, as we saw last week against Auburn, kind of takes a little while before that ground game really picks up and they're able to get the offense humming. On the flip side, when you're back in Ole Miss just for the first half, what does that mean? It means you get Lane Kiffin's first 15 plays, boy. You get Trinidad Chambliss and those plays that they've just been driving in and practicing. The best stuff that Lane Kiffin and this Ole Miss offense have, you're able to get that. And back to the other side of Georgia, it's before Kirby Smart puts in halftime adjustments, which in almost every SEC game have been very, very good when you look at the second half scoring defense for the Bulldogs. Listen, I think Ole Miss is a live dog in Athens. Ole Miss 7 and a hook is fine, but we're here for the very best bets. And given the way that Georgia has started slow, the advantage of getting Lane Kiffin's offense before Kirby makes adjustments, I really like getting Ole Miss plus 3.5 in the first half.
So I thought about backing Ole Miss here, but I told you I'm nervous. I don't really trust them right there. And the thing I don't trust is the defense, but I do trust the offense. And even though it's Trinidad Chambliss' first true road game as the quarterback at Ole Miss, as a quarterback in the SEC, as a quarterback at the FBS level coming from Division II. I do think they'll put up enough points to make this interesting. And we were talking on our Cover 3 podcast, a preview of this game, and I said a higher scoring affair. I think that's Ole Miss in the game. But again, do I trust them late to get the stops they need potentially? No. So I'm going to go ahead and tackle the over because I do think Georgia, this is a get-right game for them. They've been struggling to run the football. I think they'll be able to score against Ole Miss's defense, but I do think Ole Miss will be able to score right back. So I think it's a higher scoring game. So I'll take the over 53.5.
The final score last year in Oxford was 28-10 Ole Miss. So the Dogs only scored 10, which was matching its fewest in a game under Kirby Smart.
In the rain.
Yeah, in the rain.
In the rain, Tommy.
And that defensive line was Ole Miss defensive line was a lot better.
Love the recollection and context there, by the way, guys. Yeah. Great stuff there. Moving on to another ranked-on-ranked matchup. Boy, what a loaded SEC slate we have. LSU catching 2.5 at Vandy with a total of 48.5. This is a Saturday noon game out in Nashville. This is something, Danny, I'm going to have you start first on Garrett Nussmeier because this was a stat that actually still continued this week, and I had it as a bit of a throwaway last week. Garrett Nussmeier had 8 300-yard games last year. He has yet to hit that mark this year. It was 254 last week. So the big question is, before we get into any picks, what are the chances LSU's offense and Garrett Nussmeier goes off this week?
I don't love it. I mean, Vanderbilt's a good football team. Like, this isn't a stat game that you normally would have had maybe 10 years ago against Vanderbilt. This is still a really good team that they have to go up against. Now, I saw Garrett Nussmeier talking to the media this week, and he was talking about Brian Kelly said, hey, we need you to get that swagger back. We need you to kind of take some of those big shot plays down the field, which has me a little bit worried because it hasn't been Garrett Nussmeier's lack of trying to make those throws. He just hasn't had time. And as a quarterback, you're only limited to the weapons around you and the ability to get them the weapons because you're upright in the pocket. He's been banged up. Their offensive line has not been great. They've not been able to run the football. So, no, I don't expect him to go out there and have a game where he just lights up Vanderbilt's defense.
Chip, if I were just to ask you to characterize this offense, how would you describe the 2025 LSU O?
Underperforming its talent and doomed by their fatal flaw of offensive line issues and the inability to run. Garrett Nussmeier, he is trying. Danny's right, because in every single FBS game since the Clemson win, Garrett Nussmeier has an interception. He's got 5 interceptions on the season. They've come in 4 of those games against FBS competition since he was 1 touchdown, 0 interception against Clemson. They're trying to squeeze the windows. They're trying to make it happen. But too many times they face 3rd and long because they just cannot run the football. So, yeah, there are a couple of teams that are very talented, but their inability to block and run the football is something that just boils football down to its simplest basic ingredients. And so, yeah, LSU's defense is awesome. LSU as a team is still tremendously talented. They're only a 1-loss team. They're still in the SEC title race, the college football playoff race. It's all there for LSU, but I don't trust them one bit because they can't do one of the most important things, and that's get those blocks done up front.
Yeah, it's interesting because at some point you think the offense has got to go off, but this may not be the week to do it. Vegas certainly thinks it's going to be a tight spread, and you guys are actually on opposite ends of this game in terms of the spread. Danny, I'll start with you here, catching the points here, 2.5 with the Vego Pavia.
I hate to do this to our guy Barton Simmons. You know, he's a friend, and I love the job that they've done there at Vanderbilt. But Chip just mentioned, I think the difference in this game is LSU's defense. Defense travels. I think they'll travel to Nashville. And Diego Pavia, last time we saw him against an opponent was against Alabama. And he had 2 red zone turnovers there, which he's been prone to do. And I think LSU will be able to take away the run game, put the game more on Diego Pavia's shoulders as a passer. And that's where I think he could struggle. I think it's a lower scoring game. I think it's a tight nail biter in the 4th quarter. Ultimately, though, I'll take those points with LSU. I would love to see a 1-point victory for Vanderbilt to give our guy Barton some love on that one. But I think this is going to be a defensive affair, and I do give the edge to LSU on the defensive side of the ball.
Barton Simmons is a friend for one of us. He was a friend for the other. That is very clear right here. I am going to be backing the doors. I'm going to be laying the points. And it's not just backing the best general manager in college football. It is backing the 4th best team in the country in terms of cover margin per game. That's right. The Commodores are 4-2 against the spread. They are covering the spread by an average of 11.9 points per game. Clearly, they didn't get it done against Alabama. But let's look at the LSU side of this. What says that LSU, which is playing at home, at night against South Carolina, is going to all of a sudden be able to hit the switch as they come to play a rested Vanderbilt team playing at home with a noon Eastern 11 local kick in Nashville? I think we got to really be making sure that they get their coffee, that they're checking their pulse, because you know who's going to be rip roaring ready to go? A Vanderbilt team that has been waiting for a moment like this, ranked on ranked with Vanderbilt favored. We don't see this that often. Now, I'll take the doors. I'll lay the points.
No doubt about it. Since 1947 is the last time Vandy was favored over LSU. 1948 that this was a ranked-unranked matchup in the series. So it's been that long since those parameters that Chip talked about in regards to these two programs. We're not done yet. We still got two more ranked games to talk about, and it is going to be USC catching 9.5 at Notre Dame in South Bend. It did open 10.5. There's a little bit of USC money. And, Chip, this is what Notre Dame fans have wanted. They wanted the SC to matter. They wanted the SC to be ranked, and they need Notre Dame to run the table here. So just give me where you think Notre Dame is coming into this one right now, given that they have covered some numbers, but they maybe haven't been scoring as many points as some fans would like.
Well, they also haven't allowed a second-half point in any of the last 3 games. I think that Chris Ash's defense has settled in from a really, really porous and disappointing start. They've figured out their strengths, they've figured out their weaknesses, and they've really started to tighten things up a little. Now, I'm not ready to say that Notre Dame's defense is as good as it was last season when they made it to the national title game, but given the way that C.J. Carr is playing right now, which is maybe like a top 5 quarterback in the entire country, I don't think they necessarily need that. So your question, how is Notre Dame feeling coming into this? I think Notre Dame's feeling incredibly confident. I think that they really like where they're at right now with the way that they've solidified things defensively and let their young quarterback continue to really take off. It's a far different confidence level than what they're facing with USC, which has some injury issues and has already been through some wars so far this season.
So, Danny, I'm going to give you the Trojans. You were one of the few that actually took them against Michigan at the Coliseum last weekend here. Now, Chip did mention some of the running back issues that Lincoln Riley has in front of him. Just from a storyline vibe perspective from the Trojans here, what's the entrance like coming into this game with Notre Dame?
Oh, vibes are high. I mean, Lincoln Riley after the game was talking about that was a Big Ten win for us. And he put the emphasis on the conference that he's playing in because that was a question mark. How would a team from the West Coast, Pac-12 team that historically has been a little bit more prettier than some of the teams that are playing in the Big Ten, where they like to bring you down in the mud and kind of muck it up somewhat? Well, they played one of the more physical teams in the Big Ten in Michigan, and they were able to run the ball on them, and it wasn't close. Their defense stepped up and shut down that rushing attack. So I thought that was a monumental win for Lincoln Riley, but the question is now, what have you done for me lately? Because now his fan base and the entire country are going to want to say, all right, how do you stack up against these Fighting Irish?
Our Matt Zenitz, our insider, was saying leading rusher Wayman Jordan had ankle surgery Sunday, expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. So again, they're not going to be at 100% coming into this game. 9.5 point spread, total in the low 60s. Danny, you back the Trojans 1 week, and you're fading them another week.
So it just seems too easy. It's never this easy, Tommy, because I'm like, man, USC, they look like they had a breakout game, and I love Jaden Maeva, the quarterback for the Trojans, but all of a sudden I see this big point spread, and it's supposed to be easy, but I think this Notre Dame team is playing on a mission just like they did last year, and I am worried about the injuries that are piling up for Lincoln Riley. They're down to a freshman walk-on running back in King Miller, who did have 158 yards against Michigan. Now he's had to think about it all week. They were already down a couple offensive linemen, questionable where they're going to be, and Notre Dame is playing with the chip on their shoulder, and they're trying to do exactly what they did last year, which was run off 10 wins straight and get to the playoffs. So I'm going to go ahead and lay them with Notre Dame. I think they're really good, and C.J. Carr has been outstanding, as Chip mentioned. Even after I watched him against that Miami team, early I was like, oh, he looked pretty comfortable. And then he's only gotten better and better since then. Speaking of running backs, they have the best running back room in the country. I think it could be a long day for USC's defense.
Okay, you're going to have to hold on really tight here because both these teams can score really fast. I'm going under 61.5. I think it's just a shade too high for me for a couple of reasons. Number one, I mentioned that Notre Dame's defense, they are not up to a championship caliber, but I do think they know who they are, and they're going to have a decent game plan in place. USC's defense, I think, is coming off a really good performance against Michigan. They are continuing. They've got Kamari Ramsey back. They're really starting to unleash Jakeem Stewart, their freshman defensive lineman. But there's one other aspect of this, because while weather is subject to change, we could be dealing with a little bit of a weather game in South Bend. I'm currently tracking a front that will be moving through on Saturday. We could be talking about 10 to 15 mile an hour winds. We could be talking about some rain. And so if this is a weather game, I do not think that is good for a USC passing attack. I think that would favor more a Notre Dame team that is more than happy to play that physical brand of football and put out a score a little bit more similar to what we saw last week, where the winner has, 28, 31 points. So I'm going to go under 61.5.
Junior meteorologist Chip Patterson giving us the lowdown here. One of our colleagues, Mackenzie Brooks, in the Sports Line, Inside the Lines team, had loved the Notre Dame team total. That was like 41, 42 back-to-back weeks. They haven't covered there, but they did cover their spread numbers. It'll be interesting to see if they can do that against the Trojans this weekend. Last but not least, we've got Utah back in the rankings. 3.5 is what they're laying against BYU here at Lavelle Edwards Stadium, Saturday, 8 p.m. So when we take a look at how BYU won double overtime, Chip, and then obviously Arizona State, and we'll talk about Sam Leavitt in that situation with their next game with the Sun Devils coming up. But, boy, this is, 103rd meeting between these two teams. The blood will be boiling. The things will be going on Saturday night.
I mean, Provo at night for Utah and BYU is just going to be on another level. I'm so excited for this game and this edition of a great, great rivalry. We talked about it earlier today, that what a lot of people talk about with Auburn and Alabama in terms of the Iron Bowl being a 365-day-a-year rivalry, that is what you've got here with the Holy War with BYU and Utah. It divides the state. It divides different aspects of workplaces. It is something that really brings out a lot of the passion that we enjoy about these kind of rivalries. Now, in terms of my best bet, it is very hard for me to say that I am willing to lay 3 and a hook for the road team for Provo at night anywhere. I'm going to take BYU, but I'll add a football aspect to this as well, because you mentioned that Arizona game. I am not scared off by that close margin for 2 reasons. Number one, crazy game. Weather delay, rain pouring down in the second half. BYU very much played that game not to lose, just kind of run the football and get out of there. It almost cost them, but it doesn't change my opinion about their performance. And then number 2, I just think it's going to be a really close, low-scoring game. And in that case, if you're giving me 3 and a hook with the home dog, then on a football terms, I'm going to take that almost every time. So I'll take BYU plus the 3.5.
You've got the top 2 rushing offenses in the Big 12 going head-to-head with each other. I think they're very similar teams. Both of them have quarterbacks that are mobile, that maybe have a little bit of limitations in the pass game. Devin Dampierre, we saw him struggle when Texas Tech came to town, but other than that, he's been really good this season. Bear Bachmeier has been awesome. I can't keep track of all the Bachmeiers that are out there. Wearing number 47, toted 14 total touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. He is playing really good. I think this is all about the home field edge, which, by the way, that is one of the most picturesque scenes you will see in college football. The Y on the hill out there is outstanding. Kalani Sitake, I think, is one of the more underrated. This is a great coaching matchup. All of it speaks to me to a field goal game, so I'll back the home team getting 3.5.
It was a game winner last year, nearly at the death, and the 103rd meeting that they'll have here, just the 3rd time both teams are ranked in the AP Top 25, first time since 2009. All right, let's take a bit of a breather after that little nice segment that we had. When we come back, second-ranked Miami on a Friday night, 13.5-point favorites against Louisville at Hard Rock. Line too much, too little, or just right as the Canes coming off a bye? Welcome back to Spotlight. We're tackling the rest of the AP Top 25 teams. You're going to go in chronological order. We've got some Friday games to talk about. Louisville catching 13.5 down in South Florida against Miami with a total of 51.5. Chip, I'm going to start with you because there's some people that when they look at this line, they don't know. Some say it's fishy. Some say it's just right. They don't know what to really make of it. What do you make of the line? Because you didn't really have, I'm not sure if you had a strong play on the spread. You had a little more of a total play here, but just give me a sense of what you think about the 13 and a hook.
Yeah, I would lean Miami here. I think that the Louisville Cardinals team that we were hoping to see this year just really hasn't come to fruition. I think on the offensive line, they just haven't been quite effective. Their star running back, Isaac Brown, who is one of the best running backs in the country as a freshman last season, he's been dealing with some nagging injuries. And talking to somebody who is close to the Virginia program, last time out, remember Louisville losing in overtime to Virginia, just said it's just very clear that outside of Chris Bell, their star wide receiver, this offense just isn't healthy and clicking on all cylinders. And so in a game where you are going to be on the opposite side of Carson Beck and you might need to go touchdown for touchdown, I think I would lean more to the Miami side. But we're dealing with the Miami side that's coming out of an off week and maybe a little bit of a post-FSU hangover. It would not be crazy for Miami to be a little bit sluggish in a Friday night home game out of the gate. So that was a little bit spooked on the spread myself, but I would lean on the Miami side of things because I'm not sure how many points Louisville can score.
So I used to have an extra pair of rib pads, like a little extra padding I could wear under my rib pads, like if I thought it was going to be a more physical game. I hope Miller Moss has some of those, maybe like a double layer protection, because I think he could be in for a long night trying to get the protection up front from Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. I feel like Miami is one of the best teams in the country. Louisville's been a little bit underwhelming this year, especially physically. I think that's the thing that's probably more surprising the most. Jeff Brom was out there talking this week, and he said, hey, Miami doesn't really do a lot on defense. They don't really show a lot of different schemes. They're just better than everybody else. And I think he's talking even about his own offensive line. I think the slip-up hangover game, I don't think is on a Friday night in prime time where you only have one or two games there in the entire country watching. I think it'll almost be something where they're even a heavier favorite. I think they handle their business. I think Carson Beck keeps them from that letdown, so I'll go ahead and lay it with the Hurricanes.
Yeah, we are talking and taping on the Wednesday, so interesting to see if there's any line movement that goes, and then maybe people buying the 14 out of principle if they like Louisville. So that is Friday night. Another one we have Friday night is out in Minneapolis, where number 25 Nebraska is a 7.5-point favorite over the Gophers with a total at 46 and a hook. Once again, you guys are on opposite ends. DK, which side are you on in this game?
So I like Minnesota. PJ Fleck rowing that boat up and down the sideline. A home underdog. What more do you need? Plus, what are we talking about this week? I mean, Matt Rule's talking about the offer he's getting. I love Penn State. Dylan Raiola's out there saying, hey, that's my coach. We're not going anywhere. I hear a lot of questions except about the game that they have this weekend. It is the classic distraction, look ahead. We're just going to assume we're going to waltz out there and win the game. Meanwhile, Minnesota's 4-2. The loss to Cal all of a sudden doesn't look as bad as Cal. Looks like a team that's going to be a little bit better than we thought. So I think this is a tricky spot for Nebraska where they better make sure they handle their business, or not only do they not cover, but they might end up losing the game. So I do like Minnesota with the points, especially since it's over that touchdown number. I do think Nebraska wins, but I'm going to take Minnesota in those points.
You know, I'm so glad that we are talking about this on the back half of Miami and Louisville, because Danny and I are very high on Miami's defense, whose new defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman, came from where? Minnesota. And apparently, when he was packing up all of his bathing suits and all of his flip-flops, he took the run defense with him. Because this ain't your grandfather's Minnesota run defense. No, the Golden Gophers defending the run has been a liability in all three Big Ten games. And we're not talking about world beaters here. We're talking about Rutgers, Purdue. You saw the opponents on the screen right there. And I just think that's a terrible matchup going up against Nebraska. Not the Dylan Raiola of it all, the Emmett Johnson of it all. Nebraska's best offense is when they run the daggum football. I think that they are going to do that against a run defense that has been giving it up in Minnesota. That's how you get in and out with a win. Don't get distracted by the narratives. Just get down to running the football, and that's how you cover this thing and win by double digits.
Nebraska 3-8 with Matt Rule on the road, so not great in that particular scenario. You guys again on opposite ends of this Friday night game. So those are the two ranked teams involved Friday. Let's get to Saturday noon at Wallace Wade Stadium. Georgia Tech, the ranked team, catching a 1.5 against Duke. Now, we similarly saw a situation where Duke had Illinois about a month ago. That was a close game at halftime, and then Illinois kind of boat raced them in the second half. This total is also pretty high, 61.5. Danny, I'll start with you. I think the question some people are wondering about Georgia Tech is, will they finally falter? Will Haynes King finally have a slip-up game? And for you, will that happen this week?
No, I love this team. I love Brent Key. Maybe I'm partial toward him. I really love Haynes King, the job that he's done at quarterback. He puts the entire team on his back, and whether he's running it, whether he's throwing it, he's always getting hit. But I do think this is a physical football team that is going to give Duke all they can handle. It's interesting you mentioned that game against Illinois. Duke lost back-to-back games earlier this season. Everybody was counting from out. Darian Mensah has been playing really good football, but I do think Georgia Tech's defense will be able to get after him. And I love the fact here that Georgia Tech is the underdog, even though they're the ranked team. I think they're going to come in. I think Brent Key is going to tell them about it. I think you might even hear about it after the game and a little post-game presser after potentially. And it all ties back to that Penn State job opening. Guess who else has been talked about for that job? One Manny Diaz, where it gets a little bit distracting. Everyone's starting to wonder. Locker room starting to rumbling. Meanwhile, Georgia Tech is coming in focused to knock off the Blue Devils. I think they do it.
Danny. Come on. You can't get distracted by all the storylines here. You know about this Duke Blue Devils team. They are a better team today because of what happened against Illinois and what happened against Tulane. They are more dangerous as an ACC title contender. Yeah, you heard me right. Because of what happened in the non-conference play, because they really needed to find themselves. They really needed to get settled with their new quarterback in Darian Mensah. And you just need to look back at what happened against Cal, where they went down early, mounted a furious comeback, and then ended up beating the Bears handily by double digits to see the resiliency of this team. I think that Duke, in the last couple of weeks, has been tightening things up on defense, and they get after the quarterback. I think that they're going to apply pressure on Haynes King. I think they're going to sack him a couple of times, really test Georgia Tech's offense in a big way, and then Darian Mensah is very tough for anybody to stop. I like Duke to win this game and get an inroad to maybe challenging Miami for the ACC title.
Duke coming off a bye after their win against Cal. Brent Key, by the way, does very well as an underdog, so he can certainly play that card. 17-8 as a dog, as a head coach for him. Oklahoma off of that game, the Red River rivalry with Texas, so they slip in the rankings. They're still 14th in the country, but now favored by 5.5 against South Carolina on the road, 43 and a hook. And we talk about the Ohio State defense, and deservedly so, but OU's with Brent Venables certainly right up there too, 9.8 points per game, which is second in the FBS. You guys both like the under, so I'm curious to see where the points, if any, are going to be coming from. Chip, I'll have you go first.
Defense, special team, missed tackles. Yeah, both these teams are really just struggling to be able to put things together. And it's interesting, too, because they both have quarterbacks in Lenore Sellers and John Mateer that at different times we've mentioned in the conversations, probably more preseason for Lenore Sellers, talking about Heisman Trophy or NFL draft. Then after those first couple of games for John Mateer, maybe a little bit of a Heisman Trophy rise for him as well. They both have the individual playmaking to be able to get those scores and those points. But just the way that both these teams have been handling business against quality competition really feels like we're destined for another rock fight. First team to 22 ends up winning this football game. So, I mean, 43.5, I would flirt with some alt lines because I think this is going to be a low scoring game.
I am with you 100%. I think 2017 feels about right in this game. Oklahoma's defense, yeah, they gave up a couple big plays to Arch Manning last week, but other than that, they still were pretty stout. They're going to travel, but I am worried about John Mateer. We saw him coming back, unbelievable, remarkable story, and you have to give him a ton of credit for putting his body on the line and for going out there and just laying it all on the line for his program. But he was a little bit loose with the football, and he's been that way not only against Texas where he had 3 interceptions, but he could have thrown maybe 5. There were a couple more that should have been intercepted. Against Michigan, he was a little bit loose with the football. He got away with it. They weren't intercepted. On the road in the SEC against the South Carolina defense that I think could be problematic. I think this could be a spot potentially for a hiccup for Oklahoma, but I'm going to take the points since I get them. But I think this is a field goal type game that is going to be coming down to the wire. Low scoring game.
I just thought about something, guys.
Do it.
Defense, special teams. Does that sound like Beamer ball?
That's true.
Does that sound like Beamer? Hey, listen. Cox might be a live dog here. This could be Danny. I think you're onto something. Might save it for a little money line sprinkle for Thursday's Locks Pod. I mean, this game needs Pedialyte because it's a hangover special for both teams. But South Carolina, maybe with the outright upset on the field, that could be something that sounds, now that we're breaking this game down together, it definitely sounds like something I might have to circle.
Doesn't get any easier for either team, too. They've got Ole Miss and Bama, respectively, next week after this particular matchup, which we guys will think will be a low-scoring game. It's here, by the way, just to button up 6 picks already this year. Again, he missed some time. He only threw 7 last year at Wazoo. Time to hit a break here on HQ Spotlight. We'll continue the ranked teams. And, boy, Indiana got that big win against Oregon and Eugene last week. They're now 3rd in the nation. Hoosiers laying 26.5 against Sparty in Bloomington. Welcome back to the show. Ohio State travels to Camp Randall to take on Wisconsin on CBS and streaming on Paramount+. Badgers are underdogs of 20 or more points for the first time in any game since 1996 against Ohio State. DK and the college football pregame crew will be in Madison this weekend. Starts at 10 a.m. Eastern. So make sure to check that out Saturday leading up to this game. It is big time. Well, we know Ohio State certainly big time. Wisconsin, can they be up to the task? That is the big question, and the big spread, that's 26.5. And again, Danny, you're going to be there. And boy, last week was so bad. I think we've gotten to a point with the Badgers and Luke Fickell, quite frankly, of like, can they be the team that kept it within 14 in Ann Arbor against Michigan? Because that would be much better TV viewing than perhaps the ones that we've seen in many games this year for them.
Yeah, it's been a rough year, and the worst part about it is their remaining schedule doesn't get any easier. There's no letting up. They have the 2nd toughest remaining schedule in the entire country, so you just hope home crowd gets behind the team. It's the Buckeyes coming. Maybe there's a chance for a historic upset, which I do think they get. I do think they'll go out there and fight and put up a good one. But against this Ohio State offense, there's just so much firepower across the board. And when I look at this matchup in general, I do think one thing, we talked to Ryan Day about this at Big Ten Media Days, what I'm counting on while I'm tackling the under, I actually thought about taking Wisconsin first half under 3.5 points, but it was juiced at like minus 180, and I thought that was cheating, so I didn't want to do that. So I took a more traditional play. I'm just going to take an under on the game. I do. Wisconsin's played 3 different quarterbacks. They've had an injury, carousel at that position. I think they struggle to score any points whatsoever. And I just look at Ohio State, seeing this game as a spot to kind of hit cruise control, get the lead, get in, get out. And so I'm relying on them not to run it up against a former Ohio State Buckeye and Luke Fickell. That's basically my mind of thinking here, but I'm going to take the under on the game.
Badgers just can't get blown out against Iowa, 37-0. And Chip, usually we love when we have a situation where it's like good on good and we have this matchup. Well, it's actually just good versus bad, where Wisconsin's only averaging 8.5 points during this 4-game losing streak, and Ohio State, as we mentioned during the show, terrific defense. So give me the lay of the land and what you like in this game.
I love under 3.5, but Danny's a man of integrity. He probably could have snuck that by us, and we would have been like, "What a fun bet to root for." I think that Ohio State needs to get some things done. I think Ohio State has chores more than it has games. I think that it has to-do lists more than it has a win-loss proposition. Because unlike last year where there was some of the load management, where they basically knew everyone because everyone had been in the system and everyone had played a whole bunch of snaps together, we are still building this thing out. I mean, we're still trying to figure out whether it is Bo Jackson, Peoples, or C.J. Donaldson, the different running backs that work for different packages. It can't all be Jeremiah Smith. Let's continue to let Carnell Tate, Max Clare settle in with Julian Sayin. I think the work that Ohio State needs to get done here on this Saturday as they continue to pursue a 2nd straight national championship under Ryan Day, I think it includes them scoring a few more points than just barely winning by, a 24-0 type margin. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay this number. I think winning by 4 touchdowns is what is required for Ohio State to feel good about the way that it's played in truly one of the tougher road environments that it will face before it has to go to Ann Arbor on November 29th.
Chip, we know you love trends. Since the start of last year's college football playoff, Ohio State 10-0 straight up, 9-1 against the number. Ooh. It is a big number, 26.5, but again, we've talked about the Badgers' ineptitude of being able to score points and win games lately. Let's get to what I love to call is like the peak price point game. We've got Michigan State and Indiana, meaning Michigan State here, 27.5-point underdogs, where they just got whooped in East Lansing against UCLA. So it can't get any worse for Sparty, right? And then you got Indiana going to Eugene and Autzen and beating a top 10 team in Oregon. They can't be any better than we've seen there, right? So it's a big spread. Interestingly enough, you guys didn't want to do anything with the spread when it comes to the nearly 4 touchdowns that we have here. More so the total, though, which you guys are on opposite ends of 52 and a hook. Chip, are you on the over or under when it comes to being against Danny here?
Hold on. The same Michigan State defense that just got run through by UCLA is going to all of a sudden just find it against Fernando Mendoza? No. I'm going over the 52.5. I think Indiana can get pretty close on their own. I think that when it comes to Aiden Childs for Michigan State, he might be able to hit a couple big plays, but he also might throw some pick sixes, set up some short fields, and make life easy for Indiana's offense if maybe things aren't working. I just see this one being a situation where while I might have been tempted to look for Indiana in a hangover spot, if it is a sloppy game, it's a higher scoring game. So I'm going over the 52.5.
Maybe we should have all just backed Indiana and just laid the points and not thought about it. Maybe we're thinking this too much. But if there was a hangover game, I thought maybe it would come because Fernando Mendoza and company maybe hit the skids a little bit like they did against Iowa, where they only put up 20 points in that game. So I'm counting on it, a little bit of that hangover aspect there. But I'm also looking at Indiana's defense, and I think Indiana's defense probably was one of the more surprising aspects of that game. We knew about Fernando Mendoza, but for them to be able to make Dante Moore rattled in his own house, to come up with a couple interceptions, to be able to shut down that run game, I think they're the dominant story coming out of that one. So if Indiana is a little bit sluggish, I trust the defense. That's the reason I'm on the under, but we're probably all we should be just backing the Hoosiers.
Yeah,
Hoosiers. They look like a wagon.
They have been impressive, to say the least. In the top 3 for the first time in program history. Right behind them and kicking off at the same time will be Texas A&M on the road, laying a touchdown and a hook against Arkansas. Again, no Sam Pittman, Bobby Petrino, the interim head coach, with a total at 61 and a hook. The spread is something, Chip, that you've targeted here. You want to grab the point. So is it more on a boost Arkansas, fade the Aggies? What's the thought process here with the 7.5 that you want to grab?
Yeah, I thought I was pretty impressed with how Arkansas performed against Tennessee last week. We discussed this a little bit earlier, DK, but the 4:15 Eastern time start, a little bit staggered. Don't always get it on the main screen. Gave it a second watch. Arkansas had 11 full possessions on offense in this game. They only punted twice. Now, they got a little bit of whoopsie-daisy. Taylor Green's got to do a better job of taking care of the football, but I think that they can move it. I think they can throw the ball. I think Taylor Green can beat you with his legs. I think that this is an Arkansas team that, though Texas A&M's defense has been really, really good in the last couple of weeks, I think they're going to be able to score. It's also Texas A&M playing in a true road environment after a little bit of a long homestand against a team that has shown that it's not going to quit at this point in the season. So I think that there is a, survive the day mentality for the Aggies, and maybe survive the day means not covering 7 and a hook.
I agree with you on almost everything you said. The only thing I do is do I trust Arkansas late if this game, could you see maybe a pull away one? So because I think Arkansas can put up points against most teams. Now, they did struggle against Notre Dame, but that might have been just an anomaly. And if that's the case, then maybe I'll get a win like that one, because Arkansas's defense still has not slowed down anybody. And I don't think they're slowing down Texas A&M either. I think this is a higher scoring affair, sort of a wild rivalry game where you see some back and forth. I agree with you on Taylor Green. He could be a problem getting out of the pocket, making some plays. And I've also seen what Marcel Reed in that run game, plus the additions of those transfer portal wide receivers, Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion, have been able to do offensively. I think A&M is able to score at will. So I'd see a higher scoring shootout type of game that might work out for you, Chip, but I'm going to take the safer play, which I think is over.
Could be at the end of the day. Let's get out of here, because they've got a stretch where they've got 3 roadies. So this one at LSU, at Missouri, and they also won't have Le'Veon Moss, by the way. Mike Elko is saying he's going to be missing a significant amount of time. Not maybe season ending, but certainly this stretch could prove costly for the Aggies. We'll see if they trip up. But again, 7.5 laying that at Razorback Stadium. Last week we were on John Mateer watch. This week we're on Sam Leavitt watch when it comes to Texas Tech and Arizona State. Arizona State was ranked last week. They were catching 5.5 at Utah in that game, and then they lost. Obviously, we've already talked about the Utes. But this is via Chris Karpman from the SunDevilSource.com, our partners over at 24/7 Sports, saying, now this was today, earlier Wednesday, no tape on Leavitt's right foot today. I would be very surprised if he doesn't play against Texas Tech based on practice observations. Now, again, you notice there he does wear, I guess, a right sleeve. Yeah, so it's not, so the ankle's not wrapped, Danny, but just from observations and what we're seeing here, because a lot of the local beat reporters have been tweeting about that ankle today.
My play is not going to be impacted whether he plays or not, because I'm not taking a side. I'm tackling the total, and I'm saying under, because if it's Jeff Sims or if it's Sam Leavitt, this Texas Tech defense has been absolutely as advertised. David Bailey and Romello Height coming off the edges. Joey McGuire's done a fantastic job being in this team together. And I do think this will be a challenge. Arizona State, it's going to be rocking in Tempe. And I do think their defense will give it the best effort against Baron Morton and company for that Texas Tech offense. So I think this might be a little bit of a lower scoring game. That's why I'm tackling the under.
Lay 'em. Lay each and every one of those points, and let's keep more photos. Let's get them out there. This thing's going to 8.5, 7.5. Let's drive this thing down, because here's the deal: Arizona State with Sam Leavitt, they're Big 12 good. Yeah, they're Big 12 good, top tier Big 12 team, great coach, good playmakers, Big 12 good. That Texas Tech team over there, they are Final Four good. They've got an SEC defensive line. They've got playmakers that can go out there and rip off long runs at any time. They've got a gear that they can hit where all of a sudden, go ask Kansas, all of a sudden we're in this game and then all of a sudden you're not. I think that Texas Tech is incredibly impressive, and I like Joey McGuire. Hey, if you're a big boy and you want to be in first class, you come to Texas Tech. I mean, that is what they are doing. They've got the blueprint. You load up on the defensive line and you watch it all come in. I mean, throw in the linebackers too. Defensive front, because Jacob Rodriguez back there. This is a phenomenal defensive team. So I like Danny's angle there, at least in terms of tackling the under, but I'm just going to lay it with Texas Tech. I think they're one of the best teams in the country.
Chip, quick follow. Will it matter who plays quarterback Texas Tech? If it's Baron Morton left in an injury, Will Hammond, we certainly know what he did against Utah earlier in the season. But again, if the quarterback changes on that end with Texas Tech, does that change your play?
No, okay. Not at all. I mean, because in the words of Joey McGuire, Will Hammond's on a 2-year deal, so y'all quit calling. Because they are both in on it. It is, let's get reckless here. We got a little Chris Leak, Tim Tebow situation. Ooh. I'm more excited about the young guy, but in order to accomplish everything that you want to accomplish this year, you might need them both.
We already saw Will Hammond come in against Salt Lake City. He played pretty well. He outplayed Baron Morton in that game.
He certainly did. And just to button up what Chip said, this game opened 1, got up to 11.5, down to 8.5, 7.5. The Sam Leavitt stuff certainly has things going. So monitor that spread line as this game gets closer to Saturday at 4 p.m. Same time, Memphis at UAB, north of 3 touchdowns. Blazers don't have Trent Dilfer, no longer the head coach there, so he is gone. Danny, you're grabbing the points with the home dog. Coaching change bump?
Yeah, coaching change bump. The emotions are high there in Birmingham. Alex Mortensen takes over, son of Chris Mortensen. This, to me, is just about the size of the number. Memphis is a really good football team, but I do think UAB playing at home, I do think it will be an emotional atmosphere. It's just principal bet here. Over 3 touchdowns. I'm not going to touch it, so I'll go ahead and take those points.
MEMPHISUAB. There's one letter that's missing. It's D. There's no defense in Memphis UAB. These two teams have just played absolute shootouts all year long. The average number of points scored in UAB football games, 70.8. Yeah, let's go over on this one. Memphis going to be able to run it up, but UAB can score some points as well.
Got to hit one more break. Home stretch time here on the show. When we return, Texas back in the rankings after their win over Oklahoma, the Cotton Bowl. Longhorns back on the road, 12.5-point favorites at Kentucky. Home stretch on the show. We can be some quick hitters here with the rest of the best. We've got Oregon coming off that loss against Indiana. 17.5-point favorites at Rutgers. A 6:30 game, so no early time zone wake-up calls for the Ducks. They get the nice little break, at least from the scheduling gods. Chip going with the over in this game.
Yeah, weird game. I'm glad that you mentioned scheduling and travel. Both of these teams are coming from the West Coast. Remember, Rutgers was out at Washington just last week. Oregon, of course, playing at home to Indiana. So I don't know if any one team has a travel advantage, both having to make the trip at some point during the week. But the overplay here really has more to do with Rutgers than it does with Oregon, though Oregon obviously has the offensive firepower to be able to do a good bit of this work on their own. Rutgers overs have just been a play. The defense has been a total liability, and offensively, they've kind of had to go pedal to the metal in a way that we're not used to. Rutgers overs have been pretty profitable, and Oregon looking to get out and fly a little bit after getting bottled up by Indiana. I like that side.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how Oregon responds. That was a tough, emotional loss. Dante Moore didn't play great. First time he's really faced some adversity as an Oregon Duck. How does it travel on the road across the country? So I'm going to back Rutgers here. You mentioned them. They've been putting up a lot of points on a lot of different teams. Now, it might be a different ball game against Oregon, but I also think Oregon might be a little bit sluggish offensively. Try to get back to some of the basics, trying to run the football. So I'll go ahead and back the Scarlet Knights here playing at home.
Washington State, we talked about how we liked Wazoo. Very impressed not only covering the 33-point spread, but how they played against Ole Miss. 17.5 against UVA. You guys both like Wazoo. Any chance we're sprinkling money line in this game as well, DK?
I mean, it is the ACC. I mean, it's just, this would be the most ACC thing ever, to be playing a non-conference opponent and to see them come into your house and beat one of your teams that is a surprise upside of the season. But I don't think it happens, but I do think this game is going to be close. We talked earlier about Wazoo. They're playing with a ton of confidence. They almost went into Ole Miss, almost knocked off that team. I do trust Chandler Morris and them to put up some points as well, but I do think Washington State will keep the set. It's a big number to trust Virginia with, so I'll take the 17.5.
Yeah, Washington State, as you mentioned, was feisty last week. For Virginia, they're coming out of a bye week where the word around Charlottesville is they just wanted to get healthy. You know, they just really felt like they were dragging this team into the off week. Glad they were able to get out of Louisville with an overtime win. But the offensive line, the defense, they've been really, really banged up. And while I do not think this matters that much, if we're talking about the margins, Virginia has bigger fish to fry. And here's what I mean by that. The one loss on that resume, while it is to NC State, that was a non-conference game. If it's a choice between dumping out the playbook against Washington State or saving it for your conference games where they are still undefeated in the conference standings, Virginia's best path to the playoff is by making the ACC title game. So not necessarily using all your bullets here against Washington State.
Let's go from Charlotte to Lexington. Texas 12.5-point favorites against Kentucky. Chip, there is a trend out there that they are 0-4 talking about Texas against the number as their last 4 road games as double-digit favorites. Why will it be 1-4 after this weekend?
I still think it's a buy low spot. I liked Danny grabbing Texas last week, followed him personally on that one. Just the idea that there could be a little bit of a circle the wagons moment for a team that's still super talented, a defense that's still really, really good. I'm just not going to back Kentucky as the team to get it done. If Texas doesn't cover this spread, it's a Texas problem, in my opinion, not necessarily that they got beat. So I'm going to lay it with the Longhorns and think that if we hadn't seen some of the losses along the way, we'd have to be laying 17.5, and we might have some value.
That's what feels fishy. It just feels a little bit fishy, this line. It's only 12.5. You're like, Texas just beat Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. They've had this resurgence there. I just wonder if they come out a little bit flat themselves after that, an incredible rivalry win on the road. Arch, I do think I'm not worried about him long term, but I still think the roller coaster is going to continue until I see him consistently, week in and week out, start to deliver. I think it's another tricky little spot for him, but the defense, I do think, steps up, and it's going to be hard not to. Kentucky offensively has been almost inept, so I do think Texas defense goes there and plays really well. I think the offense could struggle somewhat. That's why I'm on the under in this one.
So let's go from an NFL-like total of 42.5 to one that would mirror the best of the best offenses we would see in the NFL. One of the highest games we anticipate from a points perspective, at least pre-flop here, and it's going to be South Florida and Florida Atlantic. The Bulls just last week in that North Texas game, that thing was already done by halftime. That live line in the third quarter was like 103. So as we've seen some of these teams with highest closing totals this season, the line's 21.5, hometown team laying it with 73 and a hook. Danny grabbing the points in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take Caden Veldkamp, just slinging it all over the yard and Zach Kitley's system. And I don't know if they're going to be able to slow down Byron Brown and company. We just saw them put up 63 last week in that shootout with North Texas. Chip's the one who's taking the daring approach and going to go ahead and try to go against that number. I'll go ahead and back the Owls. They're right down the street from me. I think they've done a really good job making significant improvements this year. Still a hefty underdog, but that 3-touchdown number is a big one there, so I'll take the Owls.
Okay, sometimes we talk about the rhythms of a season in terms of what you want to show or the decisions that you want to make with your substitution patterns. Here I'm talking about possessions. I'm talking about snap count. I'm talking about the fact that South Florida has one of the biggest games of the entire season coming up next week. So you just played a 99-point game against North Texas just last week. You're going to be on the road against Memphis this coming week. Do you really want to play a high possession, high play count game, or do you want to try to put this team away and then take the air out of the ball, because all of those snaps are increased risk of injury. All of those possessions are continuing to wear on you in terms of fatigue. I think that if you're Alex Golesh and if you are this South Florida Bulls coaching staff, you've got in mind what happened last week, what's coming up next week, and maybe not trying to play another one of these crazy 99-point games.
2 more games to go. Mizzou laying 1.5 at Jordan Hare against Auburn.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chip.
I mean, this is a lean. We're picking it because we're picking them all, but Danny, if you've got a confident play on this, I'm very, very encouraged to hear it, because I'll take Missouri because I think Missouri is the better football team. I think that Missouri is obviously not the team that has lost 3 straight games. I think Eli Drinkwitz has a brighter future than the head coach for the Auburn Tigers, Hugh Freeze. And I think that for the Tigers, being able to get out of the stadium might be a nice little cold shower wake-up call, while on the other hand, you've got Auburn going right back to the same spot where it feels like nothing is going your way, whether it's a timeout that's not a timeout, whether it's a ball that gets punched out. I mean, that is turning into a little bit of a house of horrors for the home team as well. I will take Missouri because I believe Missouri is the better team, but I've got no emotional connection that I want with this game because it is foul and stanky.
Oh, it's going to be so glorious to watch. This game is going to be absolutely disgusting. I think if Ahmad Hardy, who was leading the country in rushing before last week against Bama, I think if he got it going at Auburn, I'd say, you know what, I like Mizzou to win. But I can't trust that because Bo Pribula, I think, has been exposed somewhat as a little bit too reliant on needing that run game. Once you take that away, which I do think Auburn will be able to do, gets a little bit skittish, a little bit erratic. We saw him miss some throws in the second half of that Alabama game that could have potentially put Missouri over the top. This game is going to be a lower scoring defensive bloodbath. I think Missouri's defense, they don't even have to be that good to slow down Auburn's offense. They have not been very good at all. I think this is just a defensive, maybe you get a special teams touchdown, but there's going to be a lot of field goal attempts, probably some that hit the uprights, maybe go in, maybe go out. This game is going to be ugly, a nail biter till the end, with some coaching ramifications, too, if Auburn does, in fact, lose.
Which I feel like we've talked about a handful of times when it comes to the Tigers this season in Hugh Freeze. Last but not least, Cincinnati, 21.5-point favorites against Oklahoma State, a total of 57.5. You guys are both on the same side. Chip, just too many points, or what's the thought process here, I guess?
Hey, look, Oklahoma State is, by a lot of power ratings, one of the worst teams of all the power conferences. They are down there in the 80s, the 90s, like the range that you just do not expect to see their little logo on your power ratings. Yet, asking Cincinnati to cover more than 3 whole American touchdowns on the road in Stillwater when they got a section full of boys taking their shirts off and swinging them around to motivate the players out there. It's too many daggone points, so I'll take the home dog here.
Gosh, I just looked up. Oklahoma State's 1-5 against the spread this year.
Yeah, not great.
And they're not even close to getting covers. I kind of want to switch it, but I'm with Chip. It was more because I've taken 3 dogs today with the 3 touchdown number. So I'll back with that. We'll see how it works. Maybe those guys, that came together and rallied around each other with the tops off, maybe that's what they need. But I do not feel great about this one. Brendan Sorsby's been playing really good football. Maybe it's a Cincinnati sort of load management game where they get a comfortable lead, try to get some guys some rest. But this is not one of my favorite plays of the week, without question.
Chip's been known to move some lines, so if it gets to 21 flat, you may lay the 3 touchdowns and you could push maybe. That's right. Would be certainly an opportunity. Because it's close. A reminder as we end the show, both Chip and Danny are close when it comes to their tallies this season. One half of the Cover 3 here on this show. Also check out Bud Elliott and Tom Fornelli on their show. Scan the QR code and check them out. Thursday Locks coming up.